Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Rocky Road podcast. Today we are joined with is that even like a word? Okay, we have a new guest. His name is Joel Freeman. I'm going to have him introduce himself here in a second. And he is a professional disc golfer. So welcome, Joel. We're glad that you're here with us. And
thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Like you said, my name's Joel Freeman. I've been a professional disc golf player for, I guess it's coming up on like 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
So I started a little more locally and local. I grew up in Colorado, so that meant competing in Colorado first. And then I first went on tour in 2018. And so, that's that big step. There are kind of two definitions of the word professional in disc golf. There's the professional division, which is just the top division. And then there's professional as in you literally play for a living. And so I've done that for, this will be my 5th year out on the road and out on the big stage with all the cameras and fans and all that. And had the pleasure of taking my wife with me, being able to travel with her. And so that's been an incredible experience. And how could we not take advantage? So that's a little bit about me.
I'm sure you've seen so many cool places too, because until you just said it, I didn't even think about the fact that it's not just local. You have to disc golf all over the country, probably. Have you ever been out of the States for a tournament, or does disc golf only really exist here?
No, not yet. The answer to your question, does disc golf exist outside the US? Absolutely. It started in California, but in the Scandinavian countries, that's where it's bigger. I think the most like disc golf courses per capita is actually in Finland. So it's huge in Finland. They're really serious, really passionate about it, and so I definitely will be making that trip to Europe at some point. It just hasn't quite happened yet, but my wife and I are set on it. So we'll be there. It's just a matter of when.
That's crazy. I only heard of disc golf really once COVID hit, and I think a lot of people fell into disc golf at that point because you could go
Yep.
outside and do that. I never realized there was professional disc golfers, just like I never realized there was professional cornhole players. So the fact that you have like this hobby that a lot of people do, but there actually is a professional disc golf organization and the whole, cameras, people, fans, all the things you're talking about just blew my mind when I found out about that. So
Yeah.
that's really
No,
neat. But
that's spot on. I mean, a lot of people, you're right. There's this huge like COVID boom that
yeah.
we talk about in the disc golf world. And yeah, you're correct. Like a lot of people just think of it as kind of a casual hobby or something you might do with your friends in a park somewhere.
Hmm.
But yeah, over the last, I don't know, 10 years, I would say, disc golf has really like exploded in a major way that's starting to get a lot of eyeballs looking towards it. Um, it used to be kind of this back pocket kind of hippie reputation where you hop in your van and travel the country and try to make a couple $100 each weekend. But it feels like the sport on a professional level has doubled every year for the past like handful of years, and so it's getting to the point
Yeah.
where there are a lot of people making a very solid living. Several players, I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 players who are making 6 figures.
Wow.
And honestly, probably a few who are pushing to that 7 figure mark for the first time. So yeah, like disc golf is really, really going somewhere. It's starting to gain some traction. We're starting to pop up on ESPN and
Mhm.
get some good exposure and stuff. And so it's a really exciting time to be involved in the sport, and I'm very grateful to have front row seats.
Mm-hmm.
You're
I
kind of
guess
leading the
last
pack in
year.
a way. You're bringing
Say it again.
everybody. You're kind of leading the pack. You're like bringing people into it because they want to see you. As a professional. They want to follow what you do. And um, one of the things with disc golf I think is really cool is that anybody can do it, and it's
Yeah.
just you don't have to be, I have thrown a disc a few times and I'm pretty terrible at it. And that's really fine because you're at a course and you're at a park. Like you said, you're at a park. So you're not in
Mhm.
like this professional, referees setting all the time. Like if you played organized sports like soccer or football or something, and you have to learn these tactics I can never really play football. Like there would be no
Yeah.
outlet for me to play football, but anybody can
Yeah.
play disc golf. You just grab you can start with a frisbee, and I know the whole taboo of like it's not a frisbee, it's a disc, sure, but like you
No,
can
you're
start there.
absolutely right.
So
You're
yeah.
absolutely right. It's very financially easy to step into.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Really, probably $20 will get you a nice little beginner set, and you can just have at it from there.
Right.
Most parks are public, and you're right,
And
all
free.
ages. It's like anywhere from age 2 to 100. Like
Mhm.
you'll see players. There are like they're called age protected divisions, and so there's like the 40 plus division and the 60 plus division, and so it goes all the way up to like I think a 70 plus, or maybe even more. But
Mhm.
there are all kinds of people from all kinds of different walks of life.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things about the game of disc golf is it's like the only place that I ever see a policeman, a teacher, a lawyer, a homeless man, and two of their children all hanging out together. You know what I mean? It's like so cool. Where we all have that thing in common where we just love watching the disc fly. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's really interesting, and I was gonna ask, I'm so glad you went into that because I was thinking, yes, it might have started out with, like, the typical hippie culture and, like, the one place
yeah,
that I played disc golf one time, also terrible, wa is in Boone, North Carolina, which has a very similar, like, hippie kinda vibe, and
yeah.
so looking at that to then seeing, like, you just have a pair of sneakers and a disc, and you can do it, and so there really isn't a typical demographic, there isn't a typical age, there isn't a typical background that you see. It does it feel like a very inclusive place, or is everyone aware that everyone's so different?
Yeah, no, I think it's incredibly inclusive. It's one of the most inclusive communities I've ever seen, and one of
Mhm.
the things that really is unique and special about disc golf on the professional level is there is a really like magnified or like amplified degree of camaraderie that you don't quite see at that level in any other sport, as far as I can tell. Um, your peers are genuinely excited for you when
Mm,
they see you throw a cool shot. It just
Mhm.
seems like there's this bright-eyed kind of like excitement towards just what a disc can do. It
mm,
really is amazing. It's like it seems impossible. Some of the things that myself or my peers are able to pull off with these little plastic circles, the ways we can manipulate them, they really do, like, some amazing things happen, and you see high fives and smiles, and everyone's
mhm,
just excited, and it very much is a special like environment, and a very yeah, inclusive is a
Mhm.
good word. It did. It's interesting to think all the way back, because it did definitely start off with that reputation of kind of like, oh, I don't, the disc golf crowd, like they're a little sketchy, and
it's like a hacky
don't
sack
know.
crowd.
Yeah, yeah, don't know if I want to involve myself in that, but it's quickly just becoming anyone and everyone.
Mhm. How did you get involved in it? What did you like, how would you say, 8 years ago, you were involved in it before the COVID boom. So how did you start?
Yeah, yeah. For me, well, really, my disc golf journey started with my ultimate frisbee journey. And if you guys are familiar with ultimate,
Mhm,
um,
Mhm.
I was introduced to that. I don't know. There are just frisbees around, right? Like, just, I don't know, in the elementary school recess,
Mhm.
in the playground or whatever. Like, um, and when I was a tiny little kid. I remember my mom kind of teaching me how to throw a frisbee, and then I grew up just always enjoying playing it with different like school groups or youth groups or wherever I had the chance. I always loved ultimate, and so um, then it was 2011, and a friend of mine came up to me. His name was Connor, and after school one day, um, he just said, "Hey, have you ever heard of disc golf?" I said, "I think I've heard of it. I've never played it though. It sounds like fun." And so I just wanted to try it. And so we found a little disc golf store nearby, and had no idea what we were doing. We just picked up a couple of discs that looked cool, and they were, now I'm aware of they were like totally the wrong ones, like not a good idea for beginners to start with. Um, but we played, that was leading right into summer, and we played almost every day that whole summer. And so we just got hooked, and the rest of the story just unfolded from there.
Mhm. Sounds like it was just meant to be. I don't know, in the way you just got used to it and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. And
one thing led to another.
like I said, I always loved ultimate, and something about just, you throw a ball and it just like drops. It doesn't.
Mm.
You throw a disc and it flies. Like there's this
Mm,
impossible kind of phenomenon in physics that you just like don't see with any other object, and it
Mhm.
just, I can't get enough. That's
mhm.
just kind of what keeps you coming back. So
Well, I'm sure that there's also a humbling part of nature. I know that, like, if you throw a football on a windy day, it's going to travel differently. But a
yeah,
disc, like, it's not a circular. It is symmetrical and it is circular. You know what I mean?
yep,
It's different than a ball,
yeah,
um, where you can be the best player, and on a windy day, maybe it doesn't matter how good your technique is because it's just it might be different, and nature is so unpredictable. So I'm sure there is a lot of parts that also equal the playing field, which then adds to that camaraderie and the humble nature of just being excited. Being like, well, Mother Nature didn't want that to happen, but
yeah,
this rookie behind me had like a perfect, and just being able to bring someone up who, you
yeah,
know, maybe just had a
yeah,
good throw
absolutely.
lucky.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the wind, because I just got done competing yesterday in a for a tournament in Texas, and as you can imagine, and not just Texas but West Texas, where it's like really windy, and playing in the wind can be fun if you've got the right tools for the job, because
Mm,
it feels, it's a satisfying feeling when you do have the right tool for the job and you pull it off, against the odds of the wind, if you will.
mhm,
And so that can be fun, but yeah, and I also love that you bring up nature in general, because I think that's one of the biggest appeals for me,
Mhm. Yeah.
is just being outside. It's like it seems our culture is moving more and more towards time indoors, working on your
Mhm.
laptop, working remotely, whatever. Kids playing on their phones and their iPads and whatever. And so, just to for me personally, to have a go-to activity that I can do anytime. I can do it by myself or with a group. And so
mhm,
there's flexibility there in terms of like logistics and scheduling, whatever. It's free. It's probably 5-10 minutes down the road, just depending on where you live.
Mhm.
And you just end up taking a walk. You're just outside in the sunshine, looking at the trees, whatever, breathing in fresh air,
mhm,
for
Mhm.
2-3 hours at a time. And like, how healthy, is that? So
mhm,
time outside is a big deal for me, and something I've always loved, and always been a high priority, for me. And I think is time outside is I think is just a huge part of a really healthy lifestyle. And so
Mhm.
that's just an easy kind of go to. I would get bored with just like running or walking or
mhm,
something. That's
mhm.
it's not enough
Mhm.
to stimulate my uh, you know hyperactive brain, and so I need something extra. And so
Mhm.
Mhm.
so disc golf is perfect for me.
Yeah, Mandy and I both have a huge connection to the outdoors as well. And if you take one look at our Instagram, it's like green hiking outside. It's the same thing where it's free, and if we have to go for a walk around the neighborhood, then that's what it has to be that day. But also, like, there's some beautiful hikes around the area, and just even being able to get that perspective and time away from technology. Ironically, yes, we are on screens right now,
Right.
but you
Mhm.
have three people who probably, as soon as we click off, we're probably going to go do something active, because this is too much sitting for all three of us.
Mhm.
So you seem to be in a really, really positive place. And also, you can tell how humble you are, because you didn't tell our listeners how well you did yesterday, um,
Mhm.
when you competed. So congratulations. Before we pushed play, or before we pushed record, Joel let us know that he was, I guess, what you would call the champion of, is it like, is there a grandmaster champion? Is there one winner? Are there different tiers of winners? How does it work?
Yeah, so the competition, there are different tiers of events. So there's like a C tier event that would be like a small kind of local, maybe 100 people are involved, something like that. And then you have B tier, A tier, major. You've got all these different kind of levels. And so yesterday was the final round. It was a 3 round tournament, and yesterday was round 3 of an A tier event. And so I traveled out here to Texas to play an A tier, and yeah, and I was able to play well enough to win. Um, the first 2 rounds I played really well and earned myself a nice lead. So I was
Mhm.
out in front by quite a ways. And yesterday, this guy just started playing amazing, and I was playing not bad, but I was playing okay, and he was playing amazing. And so he closed that gap all the way until we were tied
Mm.
with, I think, I don't know, 12 holes left, or no, less than that. Anyway, we were tied. And so all of a sudden, what was supposed to be an easy little, like, kind of walk in the park kind of day for me ended up being a very stressful, kind of like high pressure battle with me and this other
Mm.
guy. So that was a lot of fun.
And it took you probably the entire time. Like, you might have had natural talent when you started. I'm not sure how, some people do, some people don't, but you've obviously, no matter what, you have to work to get to where you're at. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about, did you ever want to stop? Were there ever moments where you felt like you weren't able to achieve what you wanted to achieve? It got financially too hard, emotionally too hard. Are you comfortable talking about any of that?
At the beginning of my touring effort, I would say, I want to say in 2017, I decided I was going to go on tour. I'm like, I'm doing really well locally, and I think I have what it takes, and so I'm going to try it. And I think I had $400 in my bank account, and I drove 10 hours in my little Toyota Corolla to go play a big tour event. And long story short, I wasn't quite good enough to keep it going. And so I kind of just like ran out of money, had to kind of tuck my tail between my legs, go back home and work at Chipotle. That was where I worked. So yeah, put in some more hours at Chipotle and saved up again. And then, it's, it's tough to, it's tough to stomach that, because you've been
Mm.
working towards this thing, you've been grinding it out, and of course, you're optimistic about being able to keep up with the competition, and keep making a little bit of money to be able to keep you out on the road, and it just wasn't happening. I wasn't quite good enough at that point, so had to reset, go back home. Not something I wanted to do, but saved up, went out again, and this time I was able to stay. But it really is. There's so much to it because first of all, you're your own worst enemy, right? It's like
Mm.
you're up against your own goals, your own expectations of yourself. And so most of the pressure comes from within your own self. But there also is that logistical aspect always kind of breathing down your neck like, hey, if you throw your shot out of bounds a couple more times, or if you miss a couple more shots, like, you might not be making any money this weekend, and every once in a while you you're 10 feet away, and all you got to do is reach your arm out and, and
Mm.
set the disc in the basket. And if you don't, you know, $200, $500, $1,000, whatever, And so like you can put yourself in those situations where it's like pull off this shot or else. And when you don't, that's really tough. I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles here, but
That's
um,
okay.
Yeah, I think it's in with the I think any professional in any sport, I feel like there is that natural gravitating mindset that we have as not professionals that, oh, it's so easy for them.
sure,
And
yeah,
they just do it. They just, how can they do that? They just do it. And
yeah,
what people miss is the process from you working at Chipotle, driving there, not making enough money coming back, and what that experience taught you. And you're now, look where you are. People miss and don't see that because you're not in the public eye when you're driving, your car with $400 in your bank account.
yeah,
Now you are in the public eye of media and interviews and people wanting to be like Joel Freeman. And I wish I could throw a disc like Joel does. And they are watching you. And for you, it looks so easy, quote. And that
yes, yep,
no matter what you do, the disc does a great job. I always felt this way with professional bowlers. I'm like, if you are a professional bowler, why? Because all you do is get strike after strike after strike, and it's like kind of
yeah,
boring at that point, And
yeah, yeah,
so, same thing with really any sport. And I think being such an individual sport too, it's like it really is all about your skill and your ability. It's not a team sport.
yeah,
Now you can do teams and tags and all that, sure, but you don't have the a team to support you. It really is on you. And
yeah,
so I think it's that journey and it's those moments where people need to hear that you were working at Chipotle, you left Chipotle, didn't do what you needed, did what you wanted, and came back and had to go back to work at Chipotle.
yeah,
Like you were talking about with society, like everybody just so quickly gives up on something. And I know I'm guilty of this too. When it doesn't come easy or it doesn't work out the way the first time you had wanted it, people just throw in the towel and they're done because
Mm.
I can never be like Joel. I can never throw a disc like that. He just was
yeah,
always like that.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
that
No,
journey is
absolutely.
different. Mhm.
Professionals very much, yeah. Just because it looks easy, probably doesn't mean it is. It just means they're good at it. You know what I mean? So that's a great point. Um, and yeah, no team behind you. So it's yourself. It's yourself to blame. Like you only have yourself to blame whenever you walk away with a result that you didn't want. And
Mhm.
one of the big things that I wrestled with for a while was this like put all the hours that I put in.
Mm.
I'm working so hard towards it. I see my potential. Everyone else sees my potential, and that word gets to be annoying after a while. Oh, this guy with a
Mhm.
lot of potential, and it's like, man, okay, I'm kind of tired of hearing about my potential. I kind of just want to like
Do it.
play to it. Yeah, like
Right.
bring it. And so I think when you invest all that time into something, you put in those hours, you put in the work, you're giving, you don't know how to put in any more than you are. You're all the time, all the thought process, all the energy, whatever, the routines, and then you go show up and it's game time, and then you can't do it. You can't that thing that you just practiced doing 2,000 times.
Mm.
All you have to do is you only have to do it once now, and here it is staring you in the face, and you don't get it. And
Mhm.
it's like there's this subconscious and I think toxic kind of mental trigger that happens that maybe I don't know if I'm phrasing that quite right, but there's this thing that happens where you feel entitled to success because of what you've invested to it.
Mm-hmm.
You invested into it, so you feel like you deserve, like you are deserving of a result because of
Mm-hmm.
the amount of effort you've put in. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as it sucks to face this, that's not true. It's just not true. It doesn't matter how hard you try, you are not entitled to anything. You're not
Mm-hmm.
we all come to the course tied at 0. That's, no one's thrown a shot yet. We're all tied for the lead, and that's that. And no one is guaranteed anything. You're never guaranteed
Yep.
anything. It doesn't matter how many reps you've put in. It doesn't matter how many hours you've worked. It doesn't matter how many books you've read.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is guaranteed. And that is a crazy thought process to try to wrap your mind around, because it doesn't really make sense. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
with how hard I'm working, that means I should get a good result. But it,
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't
Mhm.
work
Yeah.
that way. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes sense because, and you take that out of context of disc golf and you put that
yeah,
in your life. And let's say you want to equate that to marriage or to a job or
yeah,
parenthood or something. Like pick your whatever it is. Some people come out of 4 years of college and you say, I have 4 years of college, I deserve to get paid this amount.
yeah,
And I have this degree and I'm this medical background, I deserve this. And that you've put that work in. So I like that point that you brought up, is even though you put in all of these hours and all of these reps and everything that you're doing behind it, doesn't mean that it's going to, one, work the first time, and two, always work in your benefit. It's just not the way
yeah,
that
Mhm.
the world works. It's not the way that life works. And I think
yeah,
you're quickly humbled when that happens and you go for that shot of 2000 and the 2000 and first time you're doing it and you need it to make that $200 to pay for your gas, and you
yeah,
miss it. And like you said, to have that all on just yourself has to just
yeah,
be a mental game and part of it. And as people are looking at that shot that you're making as a pro and it was so great, and they're not thinking about like, oh, I need to put food on my family's table tonight too, and that's what this shot is about or something.
yeah, yeah,
It can
absolutely.
mean so much more than just a simple toss of 10 feet to the basket or whatever that may be.
Yep,
And it's the same thing in life when
yeah,
you need that job, you need that, your back's against the wall. We talked to somebody recently where they were saying like their back was against the wall, they had no other choice, and you
Mhm.
have to just do it, and you have to keep trying, and you have to keep going, to make to get to where you need to be in order to provide and to live and all of the things. So
yeah.
I want to take like
Mhm.
a hard turn into Eagles Wings world, and
Okay.
I think our listeners, I know that they don't know what Eagles Wings is. So
Mhm.
Eagles Wings is a Christian disc golf organization, and they follow the pro disc golf tour, and they go to other events and hold a conference and everything, in order to share Jesus with disc golfers in a very, from what I can know about it, is a very unreached group of people that just don't tend to really know who Jesus is. And so, as we're talking here about mindset and about things not going our way and about this mistake that happens, tell me about your story into Christianity and how did you come to find Jesus? And for our listeners, that you now lead worship at events with your wife, um, and are ambassadors and representatives of Eagles Wings Disc Golf Ministry, which I think is an incredible thing and a really, really cool part of disc golf. In Just for our listeners to also know, like I've worked in behind the scenes for Eagles Wings for quite a few years now and done a lot of the behind, like I don't go out to the events, but I have done a lot of the administrative work behind it. And I think it's incredible. And I think what Eagles Wings does is amazing and very needed and just really an amazing, really cool thing that they offer to disc golfers. So talk to us about your journey and your story into that, and then how you became involved with the Eagles Wings.
Yeah, yeah. So I was privileged to just grow up with two amazing parents, and in a loving and God loving home. and so they kind of walked me through that, introduced me to God, and grew up in some strong, church communities, and yeah, I can't. We could spend this whole podcast and 10 more talking about how thankful I am for my parents. I think
Mm.
parents are the number one cause for anything in anyone's life. I mean, like, parents are such a huge deal. Parents are superheroes for what they're, for being able to raise a kid well. And I think there are, obviously endless amounts of methods and whatever. And, but I think what really comes through from a parent to a child is the heart. And my parents had amazing hearts. And, um, I talk about it in the past tense. They're still alive, but I'm just not in their household anymore. So,
Fair.
but it really had everything to do with them, and um, and so yeah, little by little, I didn't really have a bunch of super like dramatic milestones or anything. Along my like faith journey. Really just every once in a while, when you're in a relationship with God, every once in a while, he just hits you with something. And
Mhm.
so I just had a handful of like little moments like that where
Mhm.
light bulbs would go off, or a friend of mine would say something that would, something would click and kind of bump my faith or my um, kind of my lifestyle or my outlook on life to kind of that next level, if you will. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess to pick one out, one of the first ones I remember when my faith really started becoming my own was when I was 11, and I couldn't tell you what spurred on this thought. It could have just come straight from heaven, whatever. But I I just realized for the first time ever I have the option of doing something, like taking an action in my day to day life that benefits someone other than myself.
Hmm.
I just had never like considered
Mhm.
that, or like I didn't understand why I would ever really do that. Like, and so I kind of realized, oh, I can, like, it is a good thing for me to just like do something for somebody else and no strings attached. And that's I just started like making an effort to kind of live more that way. But yeah, fast forward to, I think it was 2017, and it was the night before the tournament started. We were in Kansas, and we were having this meeting, and they said, okay, that's everything, that's all the information about the event that you need to know. And before we wrap up, across the street there's going to be a chapel service or something happen, across and so I said, okay, like, um disc golf and Jesus, crisscrossing, that sounds cool, and so why not, let's see what it's about. And so I went over there, um and I don't know, it was pretty simple, not really anything like flashy, or there were like some awkward moments and some awkward people there and whatever. But I saw what they were trying to do, and so I went to somebody. I approached one of the guys and I said, "Hey, like, if you guys need help with anything, like, I would love to contribute. Just try to make it better, you know." And so that's what started my journey with Eagles Wings. One year at a time. Myself, I guess I started working more and more closely with them. Started getting involved with the music side of things, and it was really helpful for them to have me involved, just because I was touring already as a player, and so to
Mhm.
have a man on the ground at every event was
Mhm.
something that was hard to do. It's going to be hard for them to send someone out There's a lot of like funding and
Mhm.
a lot of sacrifice that that person was going to have to make to do that. And so for me to step in, somebody who was already going to be at every event and could help with little things along the way, that
Mhm.
ended up just being kind of a good fit.
Mhm.
And in May of 2020, right in the heat of COVID, I married my wife, Alyssa, and then she started really becoming involved. And like I said, we took the advantage of having the opportunity to travel together, which has just been crazy amazing experience. So we're really, really blessed to be able to do that. And the thing I'll really just say about Eagles Wings is the thing that impresses me over and over and over again about this organization is just the hearts of the people. Like there are all kinds of mistakes that we've made, left and right. There are events that we try to put on that don't quite go well, or you
Mm.
know, whatever. All kinds of like little road bumps that we've hit along the way. But really, what has stayed really consistent is just this perspective from everybody where they just want to improve, and they just want to let set the stage for God to do something,
Mm.
to do something cool. And
Mhm.
so just the perspective and the mindset and the heart and the attitude of everyone involved in this organization has just impressed me so much. And I think little by little the organization has just taken big leaps, and like the
Mhm.
services have gotten really way better in quality. We've come up with way better venues. It's more and more people involved in everything, and the
Mhm.
community's thriving, and I could go on and on. um,
Mhm.
and we're mostly talking about the touring, kind of the part that I'm involved with, but there are three other main branches of the organization. They do um, overseas missions, and so they'll like
Mhm.
install disc golf courses in Africa or South America or whatever, and kind of use that as like to as a ministry effort. And
Mhm.
then they'll also help people across the country and across the world to run events. So they have
Mm.
like just like helpful resources and tools to kind of like help a person run their first disc golf tournament or whatever, just because
Mhm.
it's hard to know how to do that. Um, and then the last thing they do is just kind of it's definitely not the last thing. It goes on and on, but just the last main like core initiative is kind of, this is a little more vague, but just like building communities just
Mhm.
across the globe. So they make an effort to again provide people with whatever resources, curriculums, reading material, whatever, to start their own small group, or
Mm.
um, yeah, just like have meetings or build community in some way uh,
Mhm.
all across the globe. And so it's
Mhm.
it's really incredible what this pretty like small organization has been able to do to reach all across the entire world. It's pretty
Mhm.
epic and really really cool to be a part of.
And we'll make sure
Mhm.
to link all of that information too in show notes so people who want to reach out and read more about it, be more involved. Because if it's all across the country, we can get so many more people. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't have millions of listeners by any means, but even if one listener out in Wyoming or something wants to be
yeah,
involved in Eagles Wings, by all means, they can be.
Mhm.
I think something that you said really early on in speaking about your experience with them is really important, and it's that a man on the ground who is already at the
yeah.
event. And so I think the most from where I sit, one of the most organic things that can help bring other people in to a relationship with, even just to bring them into a chapel service, is not some stranger handing them a pamphlet on the sidewalk and saying, "Hey, come on in, it's fun in here," but someone saying, "Hey, this is my buddy Joel, who I compete with all the time, and he's leading worship. I'm going to go support him. And oh my gosh, who's this Jesus guy? How do I get to know him?" And being able to have your relationship with that person, and they trust you as an endorsement basically for what you're doing, saying it's not some stranger coming into the disc golf community and trying to bring ministry with him. It's someone who is already
Yeah.
here connecting two passions that he has. So I
Yeah.
think that it seems so organic, and I'm really excited. I told Manny, like, she geeked out a little bit a second ago when she was talking about eagle's wings, and I love that because you
Yeah.
can just tell. You have mentioned so many times about how there's just heart behind certain things, and there's a lot of heart in every single thing that you've been talking about today.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would be your recommendation for somebody if they want to start disc golfing? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I would say, go on Google Maps or something, and just find out if there's a course nearby. And if you have, maybe there's a disc golf shop nearby as well. Maybe there's a sporting goods store. If there's a Play It Again Sports. Play It Again Sports is a really good kind of spot to buy your first couple discs. I would say, one, if you have an option to, don't be afraid to buy used discs. You don't need brand new ones, and it's like better for the planet anyway. There are already discs there, and so and really new discs. I won't get into like the details of why, but like new discs just tend to be a little tougher to throw than used ones anyway, and so that
Got to
just
break
as a
them in a little
basic, that's not always true, but so whatever. That's just a kind of a
bit.
general. Um, but yeah, and then so get your hands on some discs, find a course near you, and
Mm-hmm.
just go, because what'll end up happening is, as long as you're not too afraid to talk to some people, um, they'll help you out. Like, all you got
Mhm.
to do is just find one person out there and just say, "Hey, I've never tried this before."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I would recommend, don't do it alone, because that's no fun. So bring a friend, and then you
Mhm.
and your friend approach somebody and just say, "Hey, like, we've never played before. Do you mind if we join up with you?"
Mm-hmm.
And or where's hole one, and how do we start, or whatever, and then um, the community is such, it's sure there are going to be a couple like unfriendly people out there probably, but they're hard to
Mhm.
find. So like,
There's always a
more,
bad egg.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, more often than not, like, you're going to be able to find some really good company out there on the disc golf course, and I would say the majority of disc golfers would happily just kind of take you along and just show you the ropes. And so
Mm-hmm.
they'll tell you everything from where is the target and which hole are we on and whatever, to throwing techniques, and here's some tips for beginners and whatever. And
Mhm.
then from there, you can go as crazy as you want. You can look up YouTube channels of like tutorials on how to do stuff. You can look up my YouTube channel if you want. I've got some tips on there, some content that you can watch and hopefully enjoy, and whatever. But
Mhm.
yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
can make it whatever you want to make it, and
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that's part of the fun of it.
And the bottom line is what you said earlier too. It's no matter what, you're going for a walk outside. That's
Yeah,
honestly
Mhm.
what my disc golf experience was, because I wasn't great. I skipped
yeah,
a couple holes because I didn't want to hit the pond, but it was still an amazing time with a friend that was also learning. And so she's like,
Uh,
"Here, I think this is how you do this and this is how you do that." And we're just
yeah,
both like, "Okay, sure." But it was a wonderful walk outside, and it was time spent with friends. And so at the very bottom line of it, it's probably almost impossible to have a bad time unless you're allergic to grass or something.
for sure. Yeah,
I've gone before
yeah.
too, and I was like a caddy. I carried the backpack with the discs in
Yep.
it, and walked my dog and just talked while while going out there. I didn't actually throw them, not many at least, but I think it's. I have a good friend of mine as well that worked in ministry, and he said his wife actually explained to me that men communicate together shoulder to shoulder, and women are very face to face.
Mm.
And the way that his wife was explaining to me, he actually picked up disc golf as a hobby that he wanted to do with his sons, and also use it as a ministry, because he would grab some
Yeah.
guys and they would go out and they would just disc golf. And he said
Yep.
Eventually these guys would open up and they would share things and talk about it
Mm.
as they're disc golfing together and learning it and in the process. And then, now he has little boys, and the boys he takes out too and can take their friends, and they're little, they're 6 and 8. So they can
Yeah.
go and do this together as a family. And for him, disc golf was nothing ever professional. There was no track for him to want to go and do it long term, but
Right.
he turned into a pretty good disc golfer.
Yeah.
While he was able to minister to do youth ministry with these boys. And I just think
Mm.
that's a really cool reminder too, with just disc golf in general, is you
Yeah.
sit, you're going out together. Like you said, you can go by yourself, sure. And people do, but
Yeah.
having friends or a group of friends with you, and you each go and you're all supporting each other and just having a good time and sharing and building that community together, is
Mm.
just a really great thing for disc golf. So I think
Yeah.
it's
And you
an
can,
awesome.
yeah. And like I said, you can, if you try it and you enjoy it, you can run with it as far as you want. There,
Mhm.
as you form relationships with, other people in your area who kind of have a head start on you, um,
Mhm.
they'll introduce you to all the apps you can download that it can
Mm.
help you along the way. They'll introduce you to like league night, where everybody in the area kind of comes together and does kind of a casual
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
tournament style, like kind of a somewhere between casual and competitive.
Mhm.
There'll be like putting leagues where it's like usually indoors, and it'll be a lot
Hmm.
of like in the middle of winter. You might have snow on the ground depending on where you live or whatever, and you'll meet inside a gymnasium or something. Some sort of
Mm.
indoor environment, and set up, targets, and everyone's just going from short range, and you have a little putting competition, and so it's
Mhm.
like that. You can go on and on and on. You can watch video coverage. You can watch, coverage of people like me playing and competing on the, in the big tournaments, on throwing the big shots in front of the big crowds and stuff. And so yeah, and I'll throw this in as well. The course that you go to is probably going to make a huge difference, because some courses are long and they're not probably going to be that fun if you're going for your first time. And
Mhm.
so that's just another kind of little step along the way that you might have to ask, like, hey, where's the shortest course around here? Like, I just want to have some fun, and, I'm a beginner, and, so you got to, yeah, just like find the right spot for yourself,
Mhm.
um, and
And just go.
more than likely you're gonna have some fun. So yeah,
Sure. That's awesome. So everybody can just go out and throw a couple discs on a beautiful day. And yeah, so at the end of our podcast episode, we each ask our guests to share a song. And so we would love to know what song you would want to add to our playlist on Spotify, that our listeners can listen to this very eclectic version of many different songs,
yeah,
from a boys choir to
Big
rap music
Sean.
to, yep, Big Sean, to
nice.
like classical music to anything. So it's a whole gamut of options. So what song would you say encompasses your disc golf journey, your relationship with Jesus, your life, your experiences? What would you like to add?
Yeah, this one is easy peasy for me. I'm going with "I Will Trust" by Red Rocks Worship. I just find it really captivating and really meaningful, and engaging the whole way. It's like you're 10 minutes in and you look at the little time counter and you're like, whoa, like I had no idea that, it's been that long. But um, of course, the meaning of the song, it's all about, one of the first, I think the first line is, "I can't see where I'm going. Um, the lines are blurred, but you're showing me life, love in the midst of the dark." It's all this. It's like the blindly I'm pursuing you, and it's this idea of like, as much as we humans try to wrap our heads around like what all of this means, and why am I hurting, and why did this bad thing happen, and it just,
Mm.
we can't have peace until we surrender to God's lordship. Like
Mm.
he's the only the he's the only way who could he's the only one who could possibly know what's going on and how it'll all piece together at the end of our life or at the end of the day or whatever. um, it's that saying, if God is for me, who can be against me? And it's like,
Mhm.
there are moments where you just don't play to your potential. Things aren't going well. You're struggling, financially, career wise, whatever. And you have these thoughts, you're beating yourself up and I don't think I have what it takes. All these guys out here are better than me. And I just don't know if I can do it. And for me, I think part of that has to do with the choices I've made to stay plugged in to community, to keep pouring into my faith. I think I could be more cutthroat and really just like priority number one is my career and that's that. But I've made a conscious decision to, um, I think, keep the more important things like that are eternally important
Mm-hmm.
um, ahead of career things. And I would make those choices over and over again. I would never
Mhm.
like do it another way. And if anything, I should be doing it all the more. And so I think if for anyone out there who's able to kind of set up the priorities in a way that makes sense from an eternal perspective, um, God will honor that, and
Mm-hmm.
He'll end up helping you out and giving you whatever you need to succeed. If you put family first, he's gonna honor that, and he's gonna say, you know what, here, go ahead and have raging success in your career too. Just
Mm-hmm.
that's how he works. Like when you put your priorities straight, like he'll give you help from his power, which is
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of help you want.
Exactly. That is exactly the kind of help you want.
Yeah.
That's a really good note to end on. Very, very hopeful. So thank you so much, Joel.
Thanks very much for having me. It was an honor to be here.